Okay, welcome to week 3, and today's seminar is all about what is corporate governance, what is the purpose of a corporation, and why are we so interested in corporate governance, and what does it include. The aim is to cover this in about 20 minutes so that I can sort of get you going and doing useful things, and then for the workshop in an hour's time I will introduce you to the assignment, which is already posted up there, and so you can start thinking about and working on and incorporating your ideas into the subject. So I want to cover the review of the consequences of the failures of governance. I want to identify the key purposes of a corporation, of an organisation, because those are actually quite important, and to understand exactly what a corporation is all about and why it exists and what everybody thinks it's there for, because there's some very interesting subtleties about how businesses identify what they're there for in a legal framework, and then the sort of things that really interest them. And then I want to identify some critical issues in relation to corporate governance. So, the first thing is to look at what happens when it goes wrong. So, what are the consequences of failures of both corporate and then behind that information governance? I want us to continue what we began to do last week, which is to identify a range of stakeholders who are affected, and then to identify the impact on them. Now, you started some of that, and one or two of you sent me emails with your sort of beginnings of work from last week. Now, we've had some really rather interesting case studies in the last fortnight of what happens when things at a corporate governance level really go wrong big time. And if you trace back over the last week and a half about the company Tesco, this is the biggest supermarket in the UK, and see what has happened in only 7 or 8 days to that company. It's really very, very spectacular, and a very, very salutary warning as to what can go wrong. And if you go back to December last year and then January, February of this year, and look at the target company in the USA, again, you will see all sorts of really significant consequences to individuals, the senior executives of the company, the customers, suppliers, the shareholders. In both companies, the share price took an enormous hit very, very quickly. In Tesco, 4 senior executives were effectively sent on gardening leave last week, and in the papers on Saturday and Sunday, it becomes clear that there will be a complete clean-out of the board of directors because things have gone so badly wrong. And the new chairman, chief executive are determined that things are going to be changed so that we, the customers, and then the suppliers and the shareholders can regain their confidence in the company. And also to change all sorts of other things. They've put up all 5 of their aircraft for sale, including one they got delivered only on Thursday or Friday last week. And whether they'll get their money back is a kind of interesting question, or whether they'll take a loss on all of those 5 aircraft, who knows? Probably they will. They're also selling the Blink TV video channel, not part of their core business. They're going to refocus completely on their core business. So, huge range of impacts that are kind of interesting. Really want you to continue on this research task and develop your ideas, because the 1 or 2 examples I've had so far really need quite a lot of working on those. I've looked at 1 or 2, and I'm going to spend some time with you in the next 3/4 of an hour going through this lot with each one of you and trying to extend your thinking, because some very, very narrow ranges of thought at the moment. very, very narrow and small references list, two items, when there should be 5, 10, 15. So I want you to work very much on extending this further today. Well, I do want you, out of the sort of your research, different sort of areas, do more to look at a broader range of governance failures and a broader range of IT-type governance failures. I want you to continue developing the idea of lots and lots and lots of case studies. That CBR online summary I gave you last week, again, work through all of those to see what's going wrong in different ways in the IT governance failure. Rather than just looking at a couple, hacking, maybe, now, there are about 5 or 6 different types in that list of 2025 there. But I do want you also to look at recent corporate governance failures like Target, like Tesco. Now, the banks over the last 5 years, they also are a tremendous example of different sorts of failures of governance. This week, or this topic, is so fundamentally important in setting the whole context of the module and also of where you're going to take your assignment that you'll see in about an hour's time. So I want you to go back to your 500 words that you started doing last week, and in light of what this gentle feedback that I've given you so far, I would rather like you to look at it, perhaps even before I launch the assignment in an hour's time, have a look at it, just look at the marking scheme, and use that marking scheme to assess what you're writing here in terms of breadth, quality of research, quality of referencing and citing and support of all that you've got. I don't expect you see in that 500 words to see about 3 citations. That's far too few. You know, 500 words is about a page, closely typed. It should have 4 or 5 paragraphs. You know, you could easily have 10, 15 citations in there without any difficulty if you're really doing your research properly to support everything you're saying. And I want to see really good, complete bibliographies, or that list of references properly to Harvard standard. Really, really need a lot of work on that from some of you. And then a little bit later on, we will have this discussion about what's the evidence? Where have you found your evidence? Where are the sources? A discussion about the impact, because there's about 11, 12 of you here now, and that's really, we're going to have a really good discussion about that. We need to think clearly about, in each of these different types of context, who really was affected? And in what way? Now, moving on. I need to take you from that part and give you some more context. I want you to find John Kay's interim report in February 2012 and his final report in July 2012, which was the review of the UK equity markets and long-term decision making. Because this is fundamental to understanding what boards of directors are all about. And you'll probably find section 3 of the interim report particularly is a valuable guide to you as to what the roles and responsibilities of executive directors and non-executive directors are in ordinary sorts of companies and big companies. So this will tell you what actually is a director there to do. And then, out of that John Kay's report, he comes up with a concept called the principle of enlightened shareholder value. And when you've done a little bit of research, we'll actually have a look at what does this really mean to directors and also the senior executives who are just below the board of directors. The board of directors are those who are legally responsible for running the company, and then below that they have a group of executives who are the guys who are actually going to do the job. And out of all of that, we end up with some questions about what is a company for? What is an organization for? Is it ideas? Is it services? Is it products? And you have to think very, very carefully, because you might take it as an example, an airline. And at the sort of face level, their business is buying aircraft and using aircraft to make profit. But you have to get below that to understand really what their business fundamentally is. Is it actually owning aircraft, or what? Or if you look at people manufacturing things, are they really there to manufacture machine tools? Which might be what we used to think about. But there are more and more companies who are saying, well, yes, we manufacture machine tools, but that's because those machine tools help our customers to do their own thing, to make their widgets. And those people who are making widgets really don't care, ultimately, about those very expensive machine tools. They're just a means to an end. And so we've got to get beneath the sort of obvious answer. Airlines are there to transport people, or to own aircraft, or something. Manufacturing companies are there to make things because that's what they sell, maybe. Or is it a service? Is it a product, or is it a service? Are they there to make a profit or to make cash flow? Are they there as a means of generating employment? Do they have social purposes? And then we think about customer service, because in the press only in the last week or two, in Britain, the electricity supply companies are getting a real hammering for the lack of quality of customer service. Why? We've known for many, many, many years that keeping the customer satisfied is a really great way of keeping your business viable, sustainable, and yet, in the last 10, 15 years, with all sorts of pressures of globalization and, we see that customer service is going through the floor in many, many areas. Why? What's going wrong? Because we know that a happy customer will actually keep going, will keep coming back to us. But unfortunately, a happy customer only tells 3 people that they're happy. An unhappy customer will tell 10 or 12, and in today's terms, they will go onto Twitter and onto Facebook and trash your company. But you won't find the happy customers going on there and saying, wow, this is a fantastic operation. Well, you might find 1 or 2. So what is a company there for? Lots of questions. As I said before, I teach you all the questions so that you can ask the right questions and come up with the right answers, or good answers, in any particular context. So go to, guys, and I will come around now and have a look at your 500 words or the draft work you've done, and see how you've done, and give you some advice about what needs improving, the things you've actually done really well already, and then the things that can be done to improve it. Okay, folks?